My name's Evan Cole. I'm 47, a structural engineer who still drives a pickup older than my kids. Nothing about me screams lawsuit waiting to happen. But my grandfather left me something that changed everything. 47 acres of untouched Colorado forest. The kind of place that smells like pine sap and rain after lightning. He bought it in 1971 for $8,200 cash and wrote one line inside the deed: "Don't let them take what's yours." When he passed, the land came to me free and clear. No mortgage, no debt, just miles of timber and silence. I kept every tax payment current, $6,400 a year, filed online every April without fail. Still, life got busy. A divorce, 2 kids in college, 70-hour weeks at the firm. 3 years slipped by before I even noticed. Grandpa used to say land doesn't run away, so I didn't rush back. That property was more than dirt to me. It was memory. Summers spent splitting logs with him, the smell of pipe tobacco mixing with WD-40 from his tool bench. He'd show me the ledger where he recorded every expense in perfect handwriting. He believed ownership wasn't a gift. It was proof of effort. Whenever bills piled up or life felt unfair, I'd think about those 47 acres waiting quietly in the mountains, untouched and mine. Then, one August morning, I decided to visit. Scatter his ashes, maybe build a small cabin. I packed coffee and a camera, figuring I'd be gone a day. As I drove north, the radio faded into static and the pine trees thickened like curtains around the road. It felt good and like going home. Back then, I had no idea someone else was already calling it theirs. Every inheritance carries a lesson. Mine was that paper ownership means nothing if you don't stand behind it. Because while I was working, paying taxes, and raising kids, someone was quietly redrawing boundaries around my future. I didn't know it yet, but the fight for that land, for my grandfather's legacy, was about to become the defining battle of my life. And 3 years after he died, I would drive down that old fire road expecting pine trees and silence, and find something else entirely. I turned off Highway 36 onto the old fire road that used to lead straight into my grandfather's woods. But instead of gravel crunching under tires, my truck rolled onto brand new asphalt. The smell hit me first: fresh concrete, hot tar, and new paint. Then came the sound: hammers, nail guns, generators. My forest was gone. Where the pines had stood for 50 years, rows of Mediterranean-style houses gleamed in the sun. Beige stucco, fake balconies, manicured lawns. A stone entrance arch read, "Ridgeline Heights, a Whitmore community." I thought I'd taken the wrong turn, checked my GPS twice, but the coordinates were exact. This was my land. I eased toward the gatehouse, heart hammering, until a uniformed guard stepped out and held up a hand. "Residents only," he said. "I own this property," I told him. Showing a photo of the deed on my phone, he smirked. "Sure, buddy. And I'm Elon Musk. Turn around." Before I could argue, a white Range Rover purred up behind me. Out stepped a woman who looked like she'd never broken a sweat in her life. Mid-50s, perfect hair, white linen suit, diamonds catching sunlight. She radiated money and authority. "Problem, Ray?" she asked the guard, eyes still on her phone. "This gentleman claims he owns the development," he said. Finally, she looked at me, scanning my boots, jeans, and truck like I was a pothole in her driveway. "How charming," she said. "If you're looking for construction work, we're fully staffed." "I'm not looking for work," I said. "My grandfather bought this land." "William Cole," her smile sharpened. "Ah, that explains it. Our title company confirmed the parcel was abandoned for 3 years. Under Colorado's adverse possession statute, it's legally ours now." "It's not abandoned if the taxes were paid," I shot back. For the first time, her expression flickered, then hardened. She pulled a business card from her purse with 2 manicured fingers. "Brian Keir, our attorney. He'll explain why your claim is—" "What's the legal term?" "Frivolous. How many houses are you building?" I asked. 96, she said, almost proudly. All sold before Thanksgiving. I could barely breathe. She had paved over a lifetime of memories and was selling it by the square foot. As I turned to leave, she raised her phone and snapped a picture of my license plate. "Just in case you decide to vandalize anything, we have excellent security. The diesel from an excavator mixed with the scent of sawdust." Every sound echoed like an insult. I drove away shaking so hard I could barely hold the wheel. Halfway down the highway, I pulled over and stared back toward the mountains. 96 houses, a whole neighborhood built on my family's land. And they thought I'd just walk away. They were wrong, because if there's one thing my grandfather taught me, it's that the earth remembers its true owner. And soon so would they. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those identical beige houses standing where my grandfather's pines once grew. I laid out his old box of papers across my kitchen table, like evidence from a crime scene. Deed, tax receipts, survey maps, everything labeled in his neat handwriting. The paper still smelled faintly of pipe tobacco and oil. I checked every document twice. The deed was ironclad, 47 acres bought in 1971, recorded with Boulder County. The tax receipts were paid every year, right up to the last April. My name was printed on each one. There was no loophole, no missing payment. The land was mine. So how had a developer convinced the county it was abandoned? I spent the next 3 hours buried in Colorado property law. That's when I discovered the clause that would change everything: adverse possession. It basically meant if someone openly used abandoned land for 18 years and paid the taxes, they could claim ownership. 18 years, not 3. And the taxes? I'd paid them all. I felt anger turn into something colder. Clarity. They hadn't made a mistake. They'd gambled that I'd never notice. I decided to make one phone call that would start a war. Her name was Lydia Chen, a property rights attorney my friend Marcus in Cheyenne swore by. She'd once beaten a railroad company so badly, they offered her a job to stop suing them. When she picked up, her voice was calm and precise like a surgeon's. I told her everything. She listened for 20 straight minutes without interrupting, then asked just one question. You have proof of continuous tax payments? Every year since 2019, and my grandfather's records before that. Silence. Then she said, Good, don't confront them again. Don't post about it. Don't warn the county? Why not? I asked. Because if you stop them now, they'll declare bankruptcy, drag this through 3 years of lawsuits, and you'll be fighting 96 innocent homeowners. But if you let them finish building, she paused, letting the sentence hang like a loaded gun, then every nail, every brick becomes yours. I sat there speechless. Let them build on my land? She sounded insane. Trust me, she said. We'll take it all back at once, quietly. When the call ended, I stared at the deed under the lamplight. The ink shimmered faintly like it was breathing. They were pouring concrete on my soil. But they were also pouring the foundation for their own destruction. And from that night on, I started keeping records of my own. For the next 6 months, I became a ghost haunting my own property. Every Friday after work, I'd drive up to that shiny new subdivision that had replaced my forest. I'd park on the public road just outside the gates, pull out my phone, and start recording, time-stamped photos, video logs, and every little change I could capture. By October, the houses were multiplying like weeds. Construction crews moved fast. Framers, electricians, landscapers, all working under the same company name, Whitmore Development. It sounded expensive. Every time I saw that logo, it felt like a knife twisting a little deeper. Still, I said nothing. Lydia's plan required patience, and patience is a kind of power. Let them build your evidence, she told me. Every nail they drive is another dollar they owe you. At first, it almost felt satisfying, watching them invest millions in something that wasn't theirs. But satisfaction turned to dread when the HOA president, Cassandra Whitmore herself, spotted my truck one afternoon. Even from 200 yards away, I could see her tense up. She made a call, pointed at me, and within 20 minutes, a sheriff's cruiser pulled up behind me. The deputy, young, polite, uncomfortable, asked for my ID. I'm on a public road, I said, handing it over anyway. Mrs. Whitmore claims you've been harassing her workers. I'm documenting construction on land I legally own. Check the county records. He looked caught in the middle. Look, sir, this is civil, not criminal. But if she files again, I'll have to act. Translation. She donates to his re-election fund. I don't. When he drove off, I sat there for a while, watching the crews pack up for the day. Kids were already riding bikes on the new sidewalks, chasing each other between houses that technically belonged to me. I should have felt angry, but mostly I felt tired. Tired of people assuming that money equals truth. One night, as I filmed from the roadside, I caught Cassandra in her white Range Rover giving a tour to potential buyers. She gestured toward the view like a queen showing off her kingdom. My kingdom. I remember whispering to myself, Keep smiling, Cassandra. You're building my retirement plan. Lydia was right. Surprise was worth more than gold. Every photo I took, every recording I labeled, every county permit I downloaded online was another thread in the web we were spinning around her. By November, the first families started moving in. U-Hauls lined the driveways, porch lights flickered on, and the smell of pizza drifted through the crisp air. Watching that broke something inside me. Those people weren't villains. They were families chasing the same dream my grandfather had worked for. They just didn't know the dream sat on stolen ground. Still, I didn't interfere. I went home, saved my footage, and backed it up twice, because Lydia's voice echoed in my head every time doubt crept in. Let them finish, Evan. When they do, you'll own everything they built. By December, Cassandra realized I wasn't going away. And that's when she stopped pretending this was just a misunderstanding and started trying to erase me. It began with a letter from the County Code Enforcement Office. Some anonymous, concerned citizen had reported that I was dumping construction debris on my own property. The inspector showed up, clipboard in hand, expecting to find trash heaps and rusted cars. What he found instead were brand new houses built by her company. He looked at me, looked at his notes, and said quietly, "Someone's wasting my time. Off the record, this isn't the first Whitmore complaint I've seen." He handed me his card before leaving. "If you need a witness later, call me." A week later, things escalated. A Facebook post appeared in a local community group, written by Cassandra herself. Alert. A man named Evan Cole has been harassing residents of Ridgeline Heights, taking photos of children, claiming to own the neighborhood. Please report any sightings. Sheriff's Department is aware. Protect your families. By morning, it had 300 shares. People I'd never met were calling me a stalker, a scammer, worse. Someone even posted my license plate. That night I found the word pervert spray painted across my garage door. I called Lydia at midnight, hands shaking. She's turning the whole town against me. Her tone didn't waver. Good, that means she's scared. Screenshot everything. Don't respond. Every post is evidence of malice. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. My daughter called me crying after a friend sent her the post. My boss pulled me into his office the next day and said, "Evan, I know you're innocent, but we have a school district client. They can't have your name attached to their project. 2 weeks paid leave until this clears up. That one hit harder than any lawsuit ever could." Cassandra wasn't just attacking my case. She was dismantling my life. I started to wonder if it was worth it. Maybe I should just walk away, take the small settlement Lydia had mentioned. But then I saw my grandfather's note again, tucked inside the old deed. Don't let them take what's yours. The next morning, I called Lydia back. "No settlements," I said. "We finished this." "Then brace yourself," she warned. "When powerful people panic, they get sloppy. And that's when they lose." She was right. 2 days later, I received an encrypted email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Ridgeline Risk Report." Inside was the proof I'd been waiting for. An internal memo from Preston Whitmore, the developer himself, sent months before construction even began. It said, "Flint's grandson still owns the land. Taxes are current. Proceed anyway. We'll bury him in paperwork before he buries us in court." They hadn't just stolen my property. They documented the theft, and now I finally had the evidence to bring their entire empire down. I stared at that email for 10 straight minutes, barely breathing. Every sentence was a confession. They knew the land wasn't abandoned. They knew I was paying taxes. They built anyway, counting on money, lawyers, and fear to keep me quiet. But fear cuts both ways, and I wasn't the one bleeding now. I forwarded the email to Lydia with a single line. "You were right. They buried themselves." She called within 5 minutes. "Where did you get this?" "Anonymous source," I said. "But it's signed by Preston Whitmore himself." I could almost hear her smile through the phone. Then the walls just caved in. By morning, Lydia had verified the metadata. The timestamp, the originating IP address, everything matched the Whitmore development server. This wasn't rumor or speculation. It was evidence, digital dynamite, and we were about to light the fuse. She explained the plan like a general before a battle. "We'll file for an injunction in federal court. That stops all construction, all sales immediately. Then we hit them with a fraud claim. Civil, not criminal yet. But once we present this email, the DA will have no choice but to open an investigation. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe, but Lydia wasn't finished. Don't celebrate yet. They'll fight dirty. You'll get phone calls, threats, maybe even investigators snooping around. Let them. Every move they make from now on is just more rope to hang themselves. She was right again. 2 days later, an unmarked SUV sat across from my driveway. A man inside pretended to check his phone but didn't leave for hours. Another day, someone slid a letter under my door. Walk away while you still can. But I wasn't walking anywhere. I printed the email, slipped it into a clear binder, and tucked my grandfather's deed beside it, the 2 pieces of paper that could level an empire. That night, as I sat on the porch watching the snow fall, I thought about Grandpa, about how he'd fought to buy that land when no bank would lend to him. He'd built his life one fence post at a time. Now it was my turn, and when the Whitmores walked into court, they weren't just facing a lawsuit, they were facing history. The morning of the hearing felt unreal. The courthouse smelled like floor wax and nerves. My palms were sweating so hard I kept wiping them on my pants. Lydia walked beside me, calm as ever, a navy blue suit crisp enough to cut glass. She carried a leather briefcase like it held destiny. "Remember," she said, pausing before we entered, "we're not proving ownership today. We're proving fraud. Let me do the talking." Inside, the room buzzed with quiet tension. Reporters lined the back row. Homeowners from Ridgeline Heights filled the gallery, their faces tight with fear. At the defense table sat Cassandra Whitmore and her husband, Preston, the king and queen of stolen castles. Preston looked confident, his cufflinks glinting under fluorescent lights. Cassandra wore a smile sharp enough to draw blood. When the bailiff called the case, Cole versus Whitmore Development LLC, it felt like thunder rolling through the room. Judge Ramirez entered, a woman in her 50s with the expression of someone who'd long since run out of patience for nonsense. "Let's begin," she said. The defense attorney, a slick man in a $1,000 suit, stood first. "Your Honor, this is a frivolous claim. My clients legally acquired this land through adverse possession. Mr. Cole abandoned the property for years." The judge cut him off. "Did he pay property taxes during that period?" The lawyer hesitated. "Well, yes, but then it wasn't abandoned," she said flatly. "Continue," his voice faltered. Lydia rose smoothly, every eye in the courtroom turning toward her. "Your Honor," she began, "the defense didn't make a mistake. They made a choice, and we have proof." She opened her briefcase and pulled out a single binder. Exhibit A, internal correspondence from Preston Whitmore to his development team, dated February 18th, 2022. She handed copies to the judge and the clerk. Preston shifted uneasily. Cassandra's smile vanished. Judge Ramirez adjusted her glasses. "This email reads, Flint's grandson still owns the land. Taxes are current. Proceed anyway. We'll bury him in paperwork before he buries us in court." She looked up. "Mr. Whitmore, did you write this?" Preston's lawyer whispered something, but the judge snapped, "Answer the question." He swallowed hard. "Yes, Your Honor, but that was intentional fraud," Lydia said, finishing the sentence for him. "They sold property they didn't own. 96 houses, $16 million in illegal pre-sales. And when Mr. Cole confronted them, they tried to destroy his reputation to cover it up." Gasps rippled through the gallery. One of the homeowners started crying. The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Whitmore, do you have any defense?" His voice broke. We thought he wouldn't fight back." Lydia closed the binder and said softly, "He did." Silence filled the room, heavy and absolute. Then the judge spoke. "Motion to dismiss is denied. The injunction stands. Whitmore Development will cease all activity on Ridgeline Heights effective immediately. This case proceeds to trial for damages and fraud." Cassandra slumped in her chair, eyes glassy. Preston just stared at the table. I hadn't realized I'd been holding my breath until it came out in a shaky laugh. Lydia turned to me, whispering, "That was checkmate." As we walked out of the courtroom, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Lydia ignored them, whispering instead, "Now we build the real case. Civil damages, criminal referrals, everything. You just won the first battle." Outside, the winter air bit at my face, but it felt cleaner somehow, lighter. For the first time in months, The weight in my chest eased. I pulled the deed from my jacket pocket, my grandfather's 1971 deed, and stared at the fading ink. The old man had trusted me to protect what was his. Now it was protected. But I knew this wasn't over. The Whitmores had money, power, and pride. And people like that don't surrender quietly. The trial came 6 weeks later, and by then the story had exploded across Colorado. Local news ran headlines like, "Luxury developer accused of selling homes on stolen land." Satellite trucks crowded the courthouse steps. For the first time in my life, I walked into a building knowing the whole state was watching me, prove that truth still mattered. Inside, the energy was electric. Lydia delivered the kind of opening statement people would quote for years. She laid everything bare: the deed, the tax records, the email, even Cassandra's smear campaign. "This isn't a mistake," she said. "It's a blueprint for theft." Preston took the stand. Within 10 minutes, Lydia tore his testimony apart. Every lie he told unraveled into a contradiction. By the time she read his own email aloud, his voice had dropped to a whisper. Cassandra refused to testify, pleading the fifth. The homeowners watched from the gallery, faces pale and tight. When the judge finally spoke, the room went silent. "The court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Evan Cole." My ears rang. For a second, I couldn't process it. Then the words hit me like thunder. She continued, "The defendants knowingly committed fraud and trespass. Full ownership of the land and all structures reverts to Mr. Cole. Damages are awarded in the amount of $4.2 million. Gasps, then applause. Lydia just smiled, the kind of quiet, dangerous smile that meant she'd expected this all along. But the judge wasn't finished. Furthermore, this matter is referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office for criminal review. That's when Cassandra broke. She started shouting that it wasn't fair, that she'd built a community, that she'd been tricked by her husband. The bailiff had to escort her out. Preston just sat there, eyes empty. In the weeks that followed, their empire collapsed. Ridgeline Capital folded. Their cars, houses, and jewelry went to auction to pay restitution. Preston faced federal fraud charges. Cassandra took a plea deal, probation, and a lifetime ban from real estate. I should have felt triumphant. But when I drove back to Ridgeline Heights for the first time after the ruling, I saw families unloading groceries, kids riding bikes, neighbors planting flowers. 96 homes, 96 lives that had nothing to do with the crime that built them. I stood there a long time thinking about Grandpa's note. Don't let them take what's yours. He hadn't meant greed. He'd meant integrity, so instead of selling the houses or evicting anyone, I created something new, the Ridgeline Community Trust. Every family who'd bought a home got to keep it, free and clear. No lawsuits, no more fear. When I announced it at the town meeting, people cried. One woman hugged me so hard I nearly lost my breath. "You didn't just save our homes," she said. "You saved our faith in people." And for the first time since this all began, I felt peace. Real peace. My grandfather's note still sits framed on my desk. Don't let them take what's yours. Back then, I thought he meant land. Now I know he meant dignity. They tried to bury me with lies. But I built something stronger, truth with receipts. Those 96 houses stand as proof that you can fight power with patience, that one person can still win against a system built to crush you. Have you ever faced someone who thought you were too small to matter? Tell me in the comments, because every story like this reminds them we still keep our receipts.